So Valve just announced their new console today. Random Wednesday afternoon. Quiet season, sort of the drought season for video game news and information and updates and announcements. And they're like, well, we'll fill that void. How about we show off our new console, our new home console that we're going to be launching in early 2026? And I am so damn curious about this thing. I have so many questions, so many thoughts that I want to talk about with you all. But man, and I guess I should say out the gate, they did also announce a VR headset and a controller. I don't care at all about either of those two options. I really want to focus on the console and talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about the VR headset a little bit in the back end of this episode, but I really, really want to talk about this console. I have millions of different, my brain is pinging in so many different directions about this Steam machine coming back. And I mean, I guess purely from like a selfish standpoint, this is, I'm a little bit bummed out on one hand because I just bought the Steam Deck and this is exactly what I wanted to buy. Like if this would have been an option that was available opposed to the Steam Deck, if I could have bought a Steam machine instead of the Steam Deck, I absolutely would have. I don't really like handheld gaming at all. And I know you can dock the Steam Deck and all that, but if I just had a plug and play console, PC console hybrid thing where I can access my full Steam library and just set it up in my living room, kick back with a controller, and this is perfect. This is exactly what I would have preferred over the Steam Deck. And it's not to say there's nothing wrong with the Steam Deck per se. I picked it up primarily to play indie games on it, like The Root Trees Are Dead and Megabonk and you know, Schedule One and just these different titles that are not available on console. I really only wanted it for indie games, and it's been decent at doing that. Like certainly there are some games where it's annoying as shit to play it handheld, and I would much prefer to have an experience like this on the big screen. But anywho, it's a fine machine. But I think that as I'm looking at the, you know, what could be possible with this Steam machine, and of course there are so many questions that we have to have answered before I'm like, yeah, locked in, 100% ready to go, buy this thing day one. I'm not at that point. We definitely need to know the price point. We need to know the power. What are we looking at there? Because if we're talking about as it stands, looking at it right now, it seems that it's probably going to be about as powerful as a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, maybe slightly less powerful, but somewhere within that reasonable range. And to me, that's totally fine. I don't think you need to be much more powerful than that. And if it's at an appropriate price point comparable to those other machines, and then offering up the freedom that you get with a PC, it's like, yeah, man, that is absolutely compelling. So yeah, I mean, if we're talking about no keyboard and mouse needed, and it is a genuine home console plug and play experience, I will happily sell my Steam Deck and pick this up if it's priced appropriately. But I think the thing that I am the most curious about now is like, okay, we have these rumors have been out there forever that Valve was getting into the home console market and they were about to take that very seriously and make a real push in that direction. But the other rumor we have been hearing for a while as well has been in regards to this very game that you're seeing on your screen. Well, not this very game, but the follow-up to this very game, Half-Life 3. We have heard rumors galore that Half-Life 3, I mean, the last rumor that I remember seeing was that the damn game was finished, that it was feature complete, ready to go, and they were just polishing it up and, you know, just making sure that when this thing ships, it is as damn solid as humanly possible. And interesting timing, right? To announce a new home console that you can purchase early 2026, and then you start thinking about it, you're like, okay, well, they didn't announce this at the Game Awards, which was certainly a decision, but I think it in a way kind of works in their favor where they're not having to compete with anything for the announcement of this new console today. It's middle of November, no news taking place, drop it right here, and everybody's discussing the new Steam machine, and opposed to you announce it at the Game Awards, and you also have The Witcher 4 competing for attention, and you have whatever other random big game competing for attention all on that very day. But wise in that regard to announce it here. But what if you close the Game Awards with an announcement for Half-Life 3? And then that's an extra marketing beat where it's like, hey, exclusive to the Steam machine, which it won't be exclusive to the Steam machine, but I guess you could say console exclusive to the Steam machine, however you want to market it. Because that's the thing that people look at Valve and look at Steam as this open and you know, we're going to put our games available everywhere. And that's sort of the, you just think about PC gaming in that respect generally. I think that's generally how people view PC gaming. But Half-Life Alyx, you cannot purchase that on the Epic storefront. You cannot purchase that on GOG. That is Steam exclusive. And Half-Life 3, I assume, will be Steam exclusive as well, at least for a time period, and then maybe it'll come to PS5, maybe it'll come to Xbox, because Half-Life 2 ended up coming to Xbox, and of course with the Orange Box collection and all of that. So I'm not saying it will be a forever exclusive, but that would be a great marketing beat to say, I mean, I could be wrong, but like thinking off the top of my head right now, this is probably the second or third most anticipated game, period. Half-Life 3 or maybe The Elder Scrolls 6, right after GTA 6, GTA 6 being number 1, and then Half-Life 3 being number 2, or Elder Scrolls 6 being number 2. Like, those two might be interchangeable at that number 2 spot, but this is certainly one of the most anticipated games of all time. And if you can somehow figure out a way to market this thing as a console launch exclusive to your new Steam machine that's available in early 2026, because if it is feature complete and they're just waiting on the right time to launch it, I don't know. I'm not trying to pull out the conspiracy board here, but the timing is interesting. I guess in some ways it could be kind of tough to market it as like, this is the only console you can play Half-Life 3 on if the next Xbox also has Steam. And so you could, because it's going to be a Steam exclusive. It's not going to be a console exclusive per se. Whichever console has Steam on it, it will be able to run on that console as well. So, but that's kind of the entire point, right? Where they got to market first. Valve got to market first with this Steam machine before Xbox did with their PC hybrid thing. And so for a limited period of time, you could say, yeah, well, we're not lying. Right now, as it currently stands, when this thing launches, if Half-Life 3 does indeed launch with this machine, at that time it would be a console exclusive to that machine, because there's no other machines, there's no other home console like your Nintendos and PlayStations. You're not booting into Steam OS. So... And that just kind of opens up the entire discussion to Xbox. You know, this was their plan to create this console PC hybrid, and with Steam getting there early, like what's the fate of Xbox consoles in the future? Because as I was like scrolling through social media, I saw a little bit of people maybe needing to slow their roll a little bit with the expectations for this Steam machine, where it's like, this is the console killer. Here, it's coming for you, PlayStation and Nintendo. I don't think so. I think PlayStation and Nintendo will be completely fine regardless of this thing's existence. But with this and the next Xbox doing the exact same thing, or trying to do the exact same thing, it's like, well, now what is the selling point to buy the Xbox? And I guess it's power. That's probably going to be the answer, is that then the next Xbox is just going to be much more powerful than the Steam machine. But it's like, well, what's the cost? It's going to be a whole lot more powerful, but how much more money are we going to have to pay for that next Xbox opposed to this Steam machine? And I mean, even just talking about the specs and the power and the performance and the fidelity and this and that and the other, and it's like, I think that we are slowly approaching the end of that'll always be in conversation for sure. Like, there will be a certain subsect, a much smaller, very, very hardcore niche community who has a lot of expendable income, who they're like, yeah, we want to just buy the most powerful thing on the market. But I think that the Switch has proven that that is just not the majority of people. The majority of people are going to go wherever the games are. If you like, this is not going to dethrone the Steam Deck never dethroned the Nintendo Switch, because you gotta buy the Switch to play Mario and Zelda if you want to play it legally, and normal people don't even give a shit about going in and doing the emulation. And so it's like that's where you're gonna go and play some of the greatest games ever made. And I think that it's just becoming more and more, even talking about which games are graphical powerhouses to the point that, like, Alan Wake 2, Death Stranding 2, Hellblade 2, Ghost of Yotei, like, there's not a lot of games that have come out this generation that are really pushing performance where you're like, damn, my PS5, my Series X is getting maxed out by this game. There's not many of those powerhouse games releasing anymore. And so I don't think that the Steam machine coming along in 2026 and being probably significantly less powerful than the next Xbox, and probably quite a bit less powerful than the PS6, I don't think that's really going to matter all that much at the end of the day. And like, thinking about if it is a three-headed snake or whatever you want to call it, if we're really talking about the race between the big three of Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation in the console space, is this potentially going to be the moment where we have the Dreamcast into the Xbox era, whereas Sega is fading out of the console market, Xbox swoops in? And now, as Xbox is fading out of the console market, Valve swoops in and kind of offloads the Xbox players into this ecosystem in the same way where it's like, well, yeah, Shenmue 2 will be available exclusively on Xbox. Jet Set Radio Future will be available exclusively on Xbox. And Xbox felt like the second home for the ex Sega fans, the ex Dreamcast owners. It was like a natural migration point to go from Dreamcast to Xbox. And I wonder, could this thing be successful enough for it to be where Xbox players go as Xbox kind of fades out of the console market? And I think a thing that Steam, Valve have going for them, which is, how do you can't determine this based on any data or any fact. This just is a vibe check, but there is sort of the cool factor. Like, it is very cool to be a fan of, which, what the fuck does cool mean in the grand scheme of things here? But it feels like there is a level of passion and want to support Valve. Like, people want to support Valve. It is a cool factor, right? There's something cool about Valve, about Steam, about not having shareholders to, hold you over. And like, it's not that same corporate feeling that you get with the other big brands. And Xbox kind of has the exact opposite problem, where it's kind of cool to not like Xbox right now, and it feels like the most corporate that brand has ever become in the last couple years as they're gutting studios, and it's just optically kind of the exact opposite ends of the spectrum for these two brands. So it's very, very curious timing. Like, I do wonder, is it possible that this thing comes along and becomes the de facto number three in the console space? I don't think they'll overtake the first or second place spot, and we'll talk about sales here in a minute, but I wonder, could they kind of take Xbox's place in the console race? But PlayStation is definitely, they're not out of this conversation either, because Steam has access to PlayStation games. So that could prove to be a problem for sure. If, like, I assume right now, PlayStation executives are not thrilled at the idea of, Steam coming along, Valve coming along, launching this Steam machine and having a system that could potentially compete in the living room space, which is where PlayStation has been dominant for 30 years. You know what I mean? So they absolutely, there, I would imagine, are legit conversations happening right now about, do we create our own launcher on PC and stop putting our games on Steam? Because, I mean, this could be very disruptive. Very, very disruptive if it catches on in a mainstream sense, which I have no idea about. I have no idea if Valve is even trying to pursue the mainstream market with this thing. Like, I have no idea if we'll be able to walk into a Best Buy, a GameStop, and pick this Steam machine up. If it's not doing that and you're just buying it from Steam, if you're buying it directly from Valve, of course, we're not talking about, we're gonna, let's actually go ahead and predict some sales figures here. And I mean, but really, to even predict the sales figures, we probably need to predict the price before anything else, because the price is going to determine the success that this thing has commercially, without a doubt. So you also have to keep in mind, with Valve, they will be willing to take a loss on this thing initially, because they want, once again, they want Steam to be the de facto place. They want it to be the de facto OS that you go to, that you launch into, that you buy your games from. And so this is not a scenario at all like Asus, where they make all of their money from the hardware. Valve is going to make the vast majority of their money from selling software. But once again, going back to that point of, if this thing isn't available at your local retailers, then you have diminished the mass market appeal of this product, I mean, tenfold immediately, just by that one decision. I mean, the vast majority of normal people are still going into your local retailers and picking up their PlayStation 5s and Xboxes and Nintendos. It's that's still going to be listen, I could be wrong. Maybe Valve is so forward thinking with this plan of we want every single sale to come straight through to us and not have to share any of those splits or whatever. But I think that by and large, if this thing is not available at your local retailers, then you're probably going to see a similar, I don't know, what is Steam, the Steam Deck, is it like 4 or 5 million units sold at this point? In the Steam Deck launched in 2022, I believe, so 3 years later, a few million copies sold, or a few million units sold. You're probably looking at something similar here, maybe a little bit larger, just due to the fact that I think there is more of a mass appeal just in general for a plug and play console PC hybrid thing than there is for a handheld device. But I could be very much wrong on that. So I mean, my only real worry here is if they are already predicting and expecting this to have like a similar attach ratio and similar success that the Steam Deck had, then I wonder if, because it's going to be slightly less powerful than the PS5 Series X, I wonder if they're just not at all interested in taking a loss on this thing. But I don't know why else they would be doing this in the first place. if they like, I do think they want some level of mass appeal. They want to hit some sort of mass market product with this thing if possible. So I'm going to say, I'm going to predict, because they have the two different models, let's say 500 US dollars for the 512 gigabyte model, and then we'll say 650, we'll say 600 USD for the 2 terabyte. I feel like that seems reasonable. And that's the funny thing with all these predictions in the first place, is you're going to look back and be like, so unbelievably wrong when you look at it and like, oh, you expected $500. That thing launched at $850 for the lower end. So let's talk about sales predictions as well. And once again, this is very, very much, there's so many other determining factors. If this thing does launch with Half-Life 3 and they market those two together, that is a huge contributor to the overall sales success that the Steam machine will have. Of course, if it's $850, then that's going to, you really need to see what that price is before you can properly predict how many units this thing is going to sell. And let's talk about how many units it'll sell in 3 years, which is somewhat comparable to what we're looking at now with the Steam Deck selling around like 5-6 million in that territory. I think this will, and of course, if it's available at Best Buy and your local retailers, then that is going to drastically increase the amount of units that this thing will push if it's priced appropriately. So there's so many variables to how well, or if this thing will sell well at all. I just have a feeling it's going to sell better than this Steam Deck. And maybe that's just a gut instinct that I'll be proven very wrong on. But I'm going to say in 3 years, we're looking back at the Steam machine and it sold 9 million. I'm going to go with 9 million in the span of 3 years. And let's say 9 million 3 years. That feels right. I think I could be crazy and that could be cut in half or even less than that, but 9 million feels about right. And I think a very likely scenario is we see Xbox and the Steam machine almost eat each other in some way, where you're looking at the series consoles that are around 30 million users right now, 30 million owners of series consoles. I think that next Xbox probably drops down to about 15 million overall. And then this sort of picks up, or like they almost kind of cross, where you could see the 15 million who left Xbox picking up a Steam machine, or just having that, where you still, at the end of the day, you have 30 million consoles sold, but it's split between two different consoles, like the Xbox Hybrid One and the Steam machine, kind of splitting those 30 million players evenly amongst both of them. I could see that being the case. But yeah, man, that's pretty much all of my thoughts on it right now. There's a decent bit of information out there about it, but really the only thing I care to see now is the price point of it and where it's going to be available to purchase. Those are going to be the two big factors just for myself personally. Like, I like to go in and be able to purchase something at a local retailer. I much prefer that option if it's available. And, I just like the whole idea of, here, I'm going to take, I know people shit on the whole idea of the trade-in system at GameStop, but I love that of, hey, I'm going to take this one device, I'm going to trade it in directly for the other device, get my money straight from this store, opposed to having to put it up on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and have to meet someone at some sketchy fucking gas station and do the exchange in cash right there. It's just, I would much rather go to a local retailer, have it all done in 5 minutes. You're in and out of there with your new system. I much prefer that process. But there's a million different things we can talk about regarding this Steam machine, and just even once again talking about PlayStation in terms of the predictions there, I do kind of predict that within the next few years, PlayStation does launch their own PC launcher. And I think that what we end up seeing is that games from PlayStation go day and date to PC through that app, through that launcher, where they're no longer available on Steam at all, or maybe way, way, way later, but you can play them day and date on PC through the PlayStation app, so that they're not splitting the cut there. But we're in a very, very interesting period for the home console space because things are evolving rapidly, and I I would be lying to you right now. I'd be lying through my teeth if I told you I know what the next 5 years of console gaming looks like. I have no idea. Things are evolving way quicker than I expected. And at the same time, like, things are fairly similar as well. Here we are in 2025, and next year Valve's putting out a box, a console to put in your entertainment center, to connect to your TV, the same way we've been playing games forever. You know what I mean? And it's just, things are definitely changing, but I'm also thankful for how similar things are remaining as well in a weird way. So yeah, at the end of the day, I'm so curious to see how all of this unfolds with the Steam Machine. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And I guess for quick thoughts on the VR thing, I think I said at the beginning of the video I'd talk a little bit about it. I'm at the point now with VR where I'm just realizing I don't think I will ever want to strap something to my head to play a video game ever in my life. And I think I just gotta admit that and say out the gate from the jump, it's a me thing more than it is a VR thing. Or I don't know, I guess the mass adoption hasn't quite happened. I don't know. VR has had a decent bit of success, so maybe it is more of a me thing than it is a overall audience thing. And maybe this will be the VR headset to set the VR world ablaze and you know, have some mass market VR device launch in early 2026. We'll see. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Give me your thoughts down below in the comment section about all of this, you know, about the future Steam Machine, the future of the console space. How do you think this will compete with the other consoles? Do you think it will at all? Do you think this will be another failed Steam Machine? I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I just don't see that happening. I don't see this thing being a complete flop at all. I don't see it competing with Switch numbers or PlayStation numbers, but I could see this competing with Xbox numbers. I really could. There's definitely a buzz surrounding Valve and Steam right now. So we'll see, man. Very, very curious to see what this looks like in early 2026. I'm interested in picking it up. I'm definitely interested in picking it up, depending on that price. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below what y'all think about all of this, and I'll see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.